Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, the Honorable Ma'am Dian Erlina SPDM Hum as a lecturer of Sociolinguistics. We are from Group 6, and in this video presentations we will talk about ethnographies, which consists of varieties of talk, ethnography of speaking, and then ethnomethodology. But before that, let me introduce ourselves. My name is Miftahul Jannah, and also my partners are Sudiarti Awalyah, Rahma Meiliyanti, Widya Karamina, and Fadhil. After that, I want to show you the contents of this material. The first material is about ethnographies. The second material is about varieties of talk. Then the third material is about ethnography of speaking, and the last part is about ethnomethodology. So let we move to the first material, ethnographies. What is ethnographies? Ethnographies are speeches used in different ways among different groups of people. As we will see, each group has its own norms of linguistic behavior. Kita harus mencoba untuk memahami bagaimana kelompok orang yang berbeda menggunakan bahasa mereka atau bahasa-bahasa lain. Jika kita ingin mencapai pemahaman yang komprehensif tentang bagaimana bahasa tertentu terkait dengan masyarakat yang menggunakannya. Masyarakat yang mendorong berbagai jenis pembicaraan cenderung agak berbeda dalam banyak cara non-linguistik dari masyarakat di mana penutur diharapkan tidak membuang kata-kata juga tidak menggunakannya dengan enteng. Next slide is about varieties of talk. Here is the definitions of varieties of talk. It is instructive to look at some of the ways in which various people in the world use talk, or sometimes the absence of talk, such as silence, to communicate. Okay, here one of the example. Marshall in 1961 has indicated how the Kang, a bush-dwelling people of southwest Africa, have certain customs which help them either to avoid or to reduce frictions and hostility within bands and between bands. The Kang are talkative people. Talk keeps communications open among them. The Kang talk about all kinds of things. However, they avoid mentioning the names of their gods aloud, and men and women do not openly discuss sexual matters together. They have one kind of talk to resolve disputes, another, which Marshall calls a shout. According to Marshall, speech among the Kang help them maintain peaceful social relationships by allowing people to keep in touch with one another about how they are thinking and feeling. After that, we can contrast the need the Kang have to talk in order to ensure that tensions do not build up with the Western Apache view of silence, according to Basso in 1972. Whereas the Kang speak to prevent uncertainty in human relationships, the Western Apache of East Central Arizona choose to be silent when there is a strong possibility that such uncertainty exists. They are silent on meeting strangers, whether these are fellow Western Apache or complete outsiders, and strangers too are expected to be silent. The Western Apache do not easily enter into new social relationships, and silence is deemed appropriate to a new relationships because such a relationship is felt to be inherently uncertain. The Western Apache believe that responding will make matters worse. The initial stages of courting behavior also require silence. In this case, silence is taken to be a proper indication of the shyness that is expected between two people attempting to enter into a close relationships. They regard talkativeness in such a situations, especially in the female of the pair, as immodest. Okay, here silence is also used a kind of sympathizing device after someone dies. According to Basso, the Western Apache resort to silence when they are confronted with ambiguity and uncertainty in their social relationships. Silence is often communicative, and appropriate use must be learned. Among other things, it can communicate respect, comfort, support, disagreement, or uncertainty. In many societies, people do not talk unless they have something important to say. Well, my friends, that's all for my explanations. Let's see the second presenter. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, my name is Rahma Meiliyanti. I will continue the explanation from my friend. According to assessment in 1974, in Antigua, a conversation is multi-paced in that really makes a variety of activity that in certain other groups would be kept quiet apart. In Antigua, people speak because they must assert themselves through language. They do not consider as interpretation behavior that we will consider to be either interruptive or even disruptive. In Antigua is therefore quite a different kind of activity from talk in the Denmark, nor can be said to be better than the others. It arises from the certain needs in the society and it responds to those needs. Okay, next is according to Frank in 1964, has described how talk, what he called drinking talk, process in series encouraged from the initial invitation to part of drink to the selection of the preferred topic for discussion and problems for resolution as the drinking process, competitively and finally to the display of verbal art the accompany heavy successful drinking. Okay, next is about the ethnography of speaking. Ethnography of speaking according to Himes in 1974. An ethnography of communicative event is a description of all the factors that are relevant in the understanding how the particular communicative event achieves its objective. Himes used the word speaking as the acronym for the various factors he deems to be relevant. The various factors the word of speaking. Setting and scan. Setting and scan of speech are important. Settings refer to the time and place a particular bit of speech may actually serve to define a scan, whereas another bit of speech may be deemed to be quite inappropriate in certain circumstances. And the second is participant. The participant include various combination of speaker, listener, addresser and address, and sender or receiver. And then the third is ends revert to conventionally recognize and expect outcomes and the exchange as well as to be personal goals that participants seek to the accomplish or particular occasion. And the next is acquaintance. Acquaintance refers to the actual from the content of what is said, the precise word used, how they are used, and the relationship of what is said to the actual topic at hand. And the next is K. The fifth term refers to the tone, manner, or spirit in which a particular message is conveyed, light-hearted, serious, precise, pedantic, mocking, static, pompous, and so on. The K may also be marked non-verbally by certain kinds of behavior, gesture, posture, or even deportment. And then next is instrumentalistics. Revert to the choice of channel from example oral, written, or telegraphic, and to the actual form of speech implied such as the language, dialect, and so on. And then next is norms of interaction and interpretation refer to the specific behavior and properties that attach to speaking and also how this may be viewed by someone who does not share them. For example, loudness, silence, gas return, and so on. And then the last is genre. The final term refers to clearly demarked type of utterance such things as poems, proverbs, riddles, sermons, prayer, lecture, and editorial. Okay, next material will be explained by Widya Karamina.
My name is Widya Karamina. Okay, I will continue the next explanation. Ethnographies are based on first-hand observation of behavior in a group of people in their natural setting. Investigators report on what they see and hear as they observe what is going on around them. Sudiarti 1997 page 85 says an ethnography is the written description of the social organization, social activities, symbolic and material research, and interpretive practice characteristic of a particular group of people. The next slide. An alternative approach to designing ethnography is to try to describe the different functions of language in communication. Differences in the function of language in communication according to various experts. For example, Halliday 1973 and Robinson 1972. Halliday includes the following function is instrumental or satisfying some material need, regulation or regulating people's behavior, interactional or maintaining social relationship, personal or expressive personality, heuristic or investigating the environment, imaginative or play and be creative, and representational or expressing proposition. Meanwhile, according to Robinson, it includes many of the same functions but names them differently and, of course, divide them differently: avoidance, conformity to norms, aesthetic, dealing with regulation, performating regulation or of self and others, effective emitter marking, for example, state of affairs, emotion, personality, or identity, role, relationship, marking referential instruction, inquiry, and meta-language function. At the next slide. The term communicative competence is sometimes used to describe this type of ability. Gompers 1972, page 205, explains the term as follows: while linguistic competence includes the speaker's ability to produce grammatically correct sentences, communicative competence describes his ability to choose from the totality of correct grammatical expression available to him the appropriate forms reflecting the social norms governing behavior in a particular encounter. And the last slide. Himes 1972, page 279, has argued that in learning a language, children must learn not only how to construct sentences in that language but also must acquire knowledge of a set of ways in which sentences are used. Another often Chair's example is the different ways in which American and Japanese children are indoctrinated into appropriate language use, or C. Tobin et al. 1989, in contrast to the American encouragement of individual assertiveness, the Japanese favor developing social awareness and harmony. A misbehaving Japanese child will be told hitoni waraweru, you will laughed at by others and instructed in polite ways of declining and especially of avoiding category how for so such behavior is appropriate within Japanese culture and it is learned very early in life. Okay, the next explanation will be explained by Sudiarti Awalyah.
Hello everyone, let me introduce myself. My name is Sudiarti Awalyah. I'm from PBI4. This video, I will talking about ethnomethodology. Ethnomethodology is that branch of sociology which is concerned among their things. What talk few in this way. As later, 1980 states, the aim of ethnomethodology is to study the processes of sense-making, idealizing, and formalizing that members of society use to construct the social world and its factual properties, its sense of being ready-made and independent of perception. Next, ethnomethodologists are interested in such matters as how people interact, solve common problems, maintain social contacts, perform routine activities, and ensure that they know what is going on around them and communicate that knowledge to others. We can use a simple linguistic example to show that we cannot hope to understand others if we do not share certain background assumption with those others. Only when there is such sharing in communication possible, in unpublished work, Sachs gives the following example of a two-sentence sequence to illustrate this point. The baby cried, the mommy picked it up. We understand that mommy in the second sentence refers to the mother of baby in the first, but there is nothing in the structure of the sentence themselves to tell us this. All we have is a connection between baby and mommy, achieved through mention in successive sentence. Sachs claims that in such cases, there are what he calls membership categorization device, which allow us to assign certain meanings to words like a baby and mommy. In this case, we put the word into a set like a baby, mommy, daddy, rather than one like baby, child, adult. Consequently, we understand that it is the baby's mother who is involved in the second sentence. Ethnomethodologists regard meaning and meaningful activity as something people accomplish that they interact socially. They focus on what people must do to make sense of the world around them and not on what scientists do in trying to explain natural phenomena. Okay, next. They have also focused on how in that use of language people employ what ethnomethodologists call. The first is common sense knowledge. Common sense knowledge refers to variety of things. It is the understandings, recipes, maxims, and definition that we employ in daily living as we go about doing things. For example, knowing that thunder usually accompanies lightning. So, common sense knowledge also tell us that the world exists as a factual object. And the second is practical reasoning. Practical reasoning refers to the way in which people make use of their common sense knowledge and to how they employ that conduct of every life. Okay, I think enough for me. The next material will be explained by my friend Fadhil.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Fadhil and I will continue the material about ethnomethodology. In an interesting series of studies, Garfinkel in 1972 showed how we conduct our everyday existence in ways that clearly demonstrate how we do not question the kinds of assumptions mentioned above. He did this by creating situations in which his subjects, in this case his students, were not allowed to take certain things for granted. Rather, they were required to violate or to question matters which they would normally accept. Routinely, needless to say, language was involved in every case. For example, Garfinkel asked his students to report a conversation and state how the participant understood what they were talking about. To do so, it was necessary not only to interpret what was actually said, but also to contrast the they said with the unsaid. In other words, that which was implied or that which could possibly invert, and to make hypotheses about how the various bits and pieces of the conversation fit together as they did. Okay, next. Garfinkel points out that in such exchange, matters not mentioned or only partially mentioned are still understood. That understanding itself develops as the conversation develops, and that understanding depends on the willingness of each party to work with the other to develop a common same of interpretation for what is being talked about. There is common agreement that we have to make sense of what we hear. The shared assumption is that the participants share engage in a normal social interaction. That assumption will hold until they find very strong contradictory evidence. Okay, next. Garfinkel demonstrated this same non-literal quality in still another set of situations in which subjects were asked to question things they normally did not question. That is, to refuse to accept either ordinary appearance or ordinary uses. In this case, they were asked to behave as though the other person had hidden motives. They were to seek this out and to the extent be distrustful of others. This was not an easy task because students found it difficult to sustain and carry through this distrustful attitude. Okay, next. Ethnomethodologists have found that naturally occurring conversations provide them with some of their most interesting data. Such conversations show how individuals achieve common purpose by doing and saying certain things and not doing and saying at others. They obey certain rules of cooperation, trust, turn talking, and so on, and they usually do not confront others openly. Doubt them they be always logical or refuse to do their own part in sustaining sustaining reality. Okay, I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Well guys, the reference of this material we used a book entitled An Introduction to Sociolinguistics from Ronald Verhoeven in 2006. Okay everyone, that's all for our explanations. We apologize if there is mistake. Thank you so much for your good attention. See you on Q&A sessions. Bye. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.